Hey, Helen. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. There's someone named Gwen in the waiting room. Are you expecting them?
Gwen and Marsha are the other two speakers.
Okay, great.
So Marsha Hotch is second and Gwen is third.
Okay, great. Let's see, Gwen's talking right now. And I'm going to make each of you co-hosts so that each of you can share screen if you need to.
Okay.
Is that Norma?
Norma's in the other room. She's in room 1.
She's in room 1?
Yes.
Oh, so I don't have to be here. I wonder who's supposed to be here then.
I don't know. I was just told that Norma was getting moved to 150 and there was nobody in room 1, so I just set it up in room 1.
Oh. But she's Zoom.
Yes, I had to do some creative tech things, but she's all good to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Room 1.
Room 1.
Thank you.
How's the conference going?
Oh, so well. It's been really amazing.
We've been listening in, and it's been some fabulous talks.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. It looks like Gwen isn't connected to audio. Oh, there it goes.
Hi, Gwen.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Gwen.
So, waiting for Marsha.
Okay. It looks like people are still transitioning here on the ground too, so we can wait a little bit.
Okay. Will we be able to see the room?
This is the visual you'll have, basically. So it's not great, but you'll see most of us. And if someone asks a question and you can't hear, just let us know. I can relay it. And are you just sharing images, or are you trying to share sound as well?
I have a PowerPoint, and there's some movies in it, but no sound in the movies.
Okay, great.
So,
you want to try sharing?
do you want me to put that on?
Yeah, let's just make sure it works.
I'm not sure. Is this the right one?
Looks like it. Nice.
Okay. Now can I move it? Okay, so I can move it that way. Now can I move it back? I can't move it back.
Can you try pressing the left mouse, or the left arrow?
The left arrow. Yep, okay.
Cool.
Okay. So it's on my screen to the right. I wonder if I can bring it over here.
Or you want to do a monitor setup?
Yeah, if I turn off the second monitor, will it? Nope, doesn't come back. Okay. So, can you see it still? I could switch it.
It looks good on our end. I think whatever's easiest for you.
Okay, maybe I can move my camera.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a better visual of me.
Oh yeah, that's nice. It's a little more straight on that way.
Okay. Okay.
And does Marsha have the right? Marsha knows where to be.
I believe so. Let me text her.
Okay. Oh, there she is.
Did she get in?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope she has a camera.
I think that's my own little style of art. It's not going to be for a camera.
I think what I'm going to do is just stay here. So you're not
Hi, Marsha.
Hi.
Hi.
Our lights? We're not live, are we?
Not on the internet yet, but you are in the room here in Wrangell.
Okay. And our lights was off. Our power lines have been down, so if I disappear, I just want you guys to know that we're having trouble up here.
Okay.
It was
Fingers
off.
crossed.
Yeah, it was off all morning, so I was actually getting ready to come down by then the lights came on. Okay. My dog is ringing the bell.
We'll give it a couple more minutes here and let some more folks file in.
How many, do we have anybody yet in the room?
Just me. Hi, Helen. It's Lucy Williams.
Hi.
I haven't seen you in so long. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
good to
you.
see you. I'm sorry you're not down here. I was hoping you'd have traveled down here.
I know, we're doing a conference up here this week as well, so I've been kind of juggling two conferences.
Got it.
Setting up shop. What time's dinner tonight? What time do you want? I don't know. What time are we down here? Yeah. So maybe 6, if we get out of here right at. Because it's
I know. Look over there.
never know that.
Probably just looks like that.
It could be anyone.
I'm gonna go see who our moderator is.
Oh, I thought you were.
I've sort of become a quasi-moderator, but I really am just supposed to be really good.
We don't have 5 we emptied some last night. And the other, I think we only have 1 out of 1.
Hello.
Is this the Shotbridge?
Oh, no, that was really early this morning.
Oh. Okay.
But
What
this is
this
about
one?
apprentice program up in the Haynes area.
Okay, thank you.
Are you looking for Norma?
What's that?
Are you
I'm looking for the Shotbridge.
For which one?
Shotbridge?
Actually, it was really early this morning.
They announced that there was a change.
Oh, wait.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Wait a minute. I think you're thinking about the one, the Sergey Cons, but it's not at this time.
No. How does this go for someone? Are you doing this or do I?
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if we're gonna file it.
Go back to my niece.
Oh, fun. Which one's that?
I need it yet.
Oh, cool.
Then I think they moved her, so I just.
Oh yeah, they moved her to 4. Yeah, I don't know. They didn't say which room she'd be in, but they moved her to 4. So, yeah. Room 1. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna go wrangle a few more people, and then I'll be right back, and I'll get us started. Thanks for your patience, y'all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confusion.
There's a lot of
That lady, I don't know what she's talking about.
Well, they moved Norma's talk to this hour in room 1, and she's on Zoom, and so I think people were confused about which was the Zoom talk.
She's talking about plants.
Yeah, well then they moved me to do it to 4. So the plant talk will be at 4 actually. But
So what's happening there now?
I don't actually know what's happening in there now. But so what they're gonna do is they're gonna go make an announcement in the main room to just make sure everybody knows what's happening where.
Sorry, I need to go to that.
Okay.
But let's get started for the folks that are here virtually, and then people will file in here in person in just a minute. If that sounds good to y'all.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Well, I don't have a moderator here to introduce you all, so I will let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Well, this talk is Learning from a Master, the Chilkoot Art Apprentice Program. And I am Helen Alten. I'm the Director of the Culture and Language Department at the Chilkoot Indian Association. And this program is a program that we started this year at the start of 2022. We have 2 other speakers with us, and I'll let them introduce themselves. First of all, Marsha Hotch. Marsha.
Hi, I'm Marsha Hotch. And I'm happy to be here with you. I am also working with Helen under the language program. I am the language project person.
Manager.
Manager.
And maybe a little.
I started this mentor apprentice project with Gwen and Cara before I came on to Chilkoot. So it's been a fun project, and we're happy to share it with you today. I am in Clockwan, Alaska.
And I am in Dayshu, which is known as Haines, Alaska. And then Gwen.
Hi, my name is Gwen Sauser, and my Tlingit name is Hukdasi. It was given to me by my great-grandma, Jenny Clinot, when I was just a little girl, and it means frog daughter. My dad was David Land. He's from the Gutschit. And I'm just really honored to be able to be a part of this program and be able to sit and learn with Marsha. And my sister, too, she wanted to send her apologies for not being able to be here today. She has been sick and she lost her voice, but she wanted to make sure to extend her thanks as well.
So I'm assuming we're ready to go. And we have one person in the room, is that right? Okay. So we should continue on past this first slide. I wanted everybody to know that this slide talk is actually, there's a handout online at our website for the Mentor Apprentice Program. So if you go to chilkoot-nsn.gov/mentor/apprentice/program, you will get all the information. So a lot of what we're talking about is here, the blog link, and many of our documents. But on the left-hand side of that screen, there is the handout for the talk. I'll leave that on a little bit. And our presenters today are myself, Helen Alten, Marsha Hotch, Cara Gilbert, who unfortunately is sick and unable to join us, but had input on the talk, and then Gwen Sauser, who's her sister, will be the final speaker. And this is our order of presentation. So I'm going to talk about this program and creating this program. We had never done anything like this before. It's a new Art Apprentice Program. And it came out of the strategic plan that the Cultural Committee and the tribal, our tribal oversight group had. And their strategic plan listed cultural preservation as a big thing. They really wanted to create they want a culture department, and then a culture building, a cultural center, and they've got sort of a long list of things that they wanted. But we had to start with the beginning, which is getting a program up and running. And we looked at a grant, the ANA SEDS grant, which is an economic development grant. And based on the amount of money that they give, and it's a 3-year grant, we outlined a program that we thought would fit in it. And at first we were kind of thinking, well, we'll staff an office and we'll do this and that. But as we talked with the Cultural Committee, and there was a back and forth, I finally said, what do you guys really want? And they came up with, what we really want is to have more master artists. And I said, how are we going to do that? And they suggested apprentices. And some of our people on the committee were artists who wanted to get more learning. They wanted to know more about their art form. So there was a real excitement and a lot of interest in the program going forward with this idea of mentors and apprentices. We looked at some other programs. There are not very many of them, but we found 2 that were art apprenticeships that we could look at and kind of talk to them about what they were doing. And we looked at what the budget allowed. And since we wanted to have 2 full-time staff people, a director and an educator for the program, we knew that we only had so much money left after that. And that money could divide up as $10,000 for a mentor and $6,000 for an apprentice, and then $500 for the apprentice to buy supplies. None of which is enough money, but it's a start, and it was enough, we hoped, to make people want to do the program. The next thing was writing the grant, and we were lucky to get the grant, and many thanks to ANA for that. And then and getting in the people, hiring the people that we needed, which took a while given the tail end of COVID, and then creating all of the paper that you need for a program. So we needed to first have an application form. We needed to have some idea of what people wanted to know, had questions about the program. So we needed something in writing that they could see, a website. We developed this postcard that you see here in the middle of the screen, and we developed flyers and digital ads and newspaper ads. We sent the postcard to every single member in the tribe. again, hoping to generate a lot of interest. And then once we sent out all the advertising materials, I worked on a handbook. And once we determined who our apprentices and mentors would be, we had contracts that had to be written. I developed sample invoices for the apprentice and mentors to be able to use. And then we had photo authorization forms and some other financial forms for them. So some of these forms are on that website that I told you about. One of the places that I found and that was very inspirational is the Native Arts and Cultures Foundation, their Mentor Artist Fellowship. They were providing $30,000 to a master artist, and that master artist then paid an apprentice out of that and for the supplies. And so the idea was that the master artist would learn some business skills, and then the apprentice would learn the art skills. Another program that program is, I don't believe, still in existence in that format. They've started something called LIFT, which is $10,000 to an up and coming artist, which they just did their first funding round on. But they shared all the documents that they had created. Our application form really follows their application form pretty closely. And it was nice seeing some of these other forms to get an idea of what I might have missed, what kind of ideas, what was I missing in terms of liability or just things that we probably should have in a handbook or have in a form. The other place that was very, very helpful was the Alliance for California Traditional Arts. And they were amazing. And they shared everything, and they shared their contracts. They shared everything. They've been in existence for decades. I don't remember exactly how long, but they have been pairing mentors with apprentices in traditional arts, not just indigenous groups, but other cultures as well, Greek and Hispanic and other cultures. So they had a really good take on how things could fail and how things worked and what was good and bad. And those are the two groups that I spoke with and was able to get quite a bit of information from. The University of West London had a really nice handbook online, and I copied a lot of what they had in there. It's really kind of a mentoring for young people going into business, but there were some very good things in there. And also the Illinois Association of Healthcare Attorneys, they have a mentor-mentee playbook that I was able to find information in that looked useful. And then I also looked at the Sealaska Heritage Institute, the handbook that they created for the Tlingit Language Mentor Apprentice Program. Sealaska, I spoke with them as well, but I didn't get quite as much. They were in the middle of building their new building, and the education department was pretty busy. And so we didn't have quite as much of a back and forth about what would work and what wouldn't. So just to show you some of the pictures I'm showing you are from artists, some of the artists that aren't in this talk. So you can see some of, in particular, Rob Martin's metalworking. But we did a guideline, and then also that's also got the application in it, and we set up a apprenticeship mentor handbook. And when we're looking at selecting the apprentices, we wanted Chilkoot tribal members. That was our first choice. If we didn't get Chilkoot tribal members, then the second choice would be Chilkat tribal members. And then I'm not quite sure what we would have done if we hadn't gotten either of those. We wanted people who had a history of creating art and showed that they had the hand skills and the capability of mastering something. We wanted people who had a specific learning goal, that knew what they wanted, and that had identified someone with whom to work. Now, not everybody, some people came in and said, I want to learn this, but I don't know where to go to find somebody. And so then we talked with them and helped them find somebody that they could work with. And some of the considerations were not just that this person knows the art form, but it has this mentor taught before? Have they been a mentor before? And do the personalities align? And I had with one of our apprentices, I had a very serious talk about who can you work with, because you have very specific needs in terms of personalities, and you couldn't probably work with just anybody. You need to really make sure that you can work with whoever you choose. And so that narrowed the field somewhat in terms of who could be a mentor for that person. So, and then the final thing for the apprentices was that person have a commitment to sharing their knowledge and staying in the community. And that I got from the California folks. They said that it's really important if someone is not willing to do a public program or share their knowledge, that automatically eliminates them from the California program. So I thought that was interesting, and it was a good marker for us. And what you're seeing here is Karen, Tog, and Lily Hope in one of their first sessions working on the Chilkoot weaving, and then Rob Martin just recently has been working on making tinaz. So these are the mentors. We're supposed to only have one mentor per apprentice, and we were only supposed to have 2 apprentices per year. But because our hiring was late, we actually had extra money in our first year, and we were able to create another apprenticeship. And in this case, Gwen and Cara wanted to be together, and Marsha was willing to take 2 apprentices on. So they're a little bit different because they had 2 of them both received apprenticeships, with Marsha just getting the 1 mentorship. But these are our apprentices and mentors. And as you can see, we have 3 that are doing Chilkoot weaving and 1 that's doing metalsmithing. The obligations in the contracts that they signed, the apprentices are doing a minimum of 6 months and 520 hours on the apprenticeship, which is about 20 hours a week if it's 6 months, 10 hours a week if it's a year. They needed to attend an initial meeting at our organization at the CIA. They were to establish SMART goals. We did have in our brochure for them that you need to be on time and be respectful of your mentor. Again, this came from California. Apparently they had had issues with people who were not either of those. We also asked that they document with photographs and video the process, their learning process, and that those documents are provided to CIA as part of our record. And they can also be used in a blog during the apprenticeship. We're asking them to provide a minimum of 1 blog posting per month. That's fallen down a little bit this summer. We all got pretty busy, and summer was kind of hectic time. But in general, they've been doing 1 blog post per month. They also needed to commit to work at least 2 years in Haines afterwards, so that we're gaining some local benefit from having them go through the apprenticeship. And the final public presentation at the end of the apprenticeship, again, to promote the apprenticeship and promote themselves and promote the work. And then they need to provide written reports, both a midterm and an end of project report. The mentors also had to do the written reports, and they also had to attend the CIA meeting. They had to know the art form and be able to teach it and its cultural significance. And they helped the apprentice with the public program. But I think most important is that they needed to be good at pedagogy. So they needed to be able to outline a curriculum based on the identified goals of the apprentice. And that was part of the application process, and our asking them questions. If they had a good curriculum outlined, then we knew that this could succeed and could go forward. So this is a slide by one of our apprentices who's not here, Karen Taub. Marsha, you want to talk to this slide? Or do you want me to? You're muted, Marsha.
I'm here, sorry. Lily Hope she has been teaching Chilkoot weaving, and she actually teaches online. She's quite inspirational, and she has been mentoring Karen for some time, but she has this child robe. And so that's the project that Karen and Lily are doing together there. And so Karen's not with us, so I'll try to go through. It's the child's robe is 30 inches, which means 30 inches wide. And they had to go through gathering the materials, selecting a design, and calculating and measuring and how much warp is going to go onto the loom. And I believe this warp was given to Karen. She got it from somebody in Juneau. And she started off, as you can see up at the top there, she got her first two rows in, and then she did some twining and then brought in her 3-strand. So she's gotten her borders, which is really important especially when you're working on a huge project. And then she's kind of framing in her design field. And this is the first few rows of the design field. Here she has design field requires managing, and 32 braids or 96 strands of wool weavers. Especially when as you can see, weavers, what's going up on that robe is what she's talking about there. Karen says, Gunachish to our ancestors. It is an experience of closeness, which it is, it truly is, in how they documented our clan history. Tlingit people have been in the region for long, long before contact, and as history has a way of telling, whether it's the history from off the land, our elders recorded that. They're talking about glaciation times, flood times. So our people experienced it. And so this is one of the ways they can document certain clan histories. And the process is technical in both the designs and the execution, as it requires a lot of collaboration of the designer. And does the designer understand weaving? You just can't go and get anybody to go and design it. Is it going to fit into your design field? Because now, instead of painting or drawing, you're actually weaving it. And there has to be that. So everything has to work in a balance. And I think that's what she's talking about here, collaboration of the designer and the expert weaver. And learning from Lily is, she says, and Lily is an experienced master. Lily is the daughter of Clarissa Roselle. And Clarissa had taken a class from Jenny Clunot. And so you can see the process of the weaving being handed down here. She's an experienced master weaver and is an opportunity to continue. And she gives others an opportunity to continue the traditional art of Chilkoot weaving, what they call Chilkoot weaving. I'm done.
Oh, it might not be. There we go.
And just to give you a little background, I began my journey back in 2004. I always knew down deep in my heart that I was going to Chilkoot weave. I was going to Chilkoot weave, but I raised my family and things were quieting down. And I had decided I would try to venture down that road. And so I asked a a friend if she could teach me how to Chilkoot weave. Well, she knew a little bit about it. She learned a little bit from her grandma, but she just didn't feel confident enough to actually teach it. And so as a language teacher, I'm a speaker, but I didn't know how to teach Tlingit language. I actually had to learn how to do that. So I kind of understood where she was at. And so I came back home and I said, you know, this is the time for me to start this. I have to do this. And so I told my family, I have a family of hunters. A lot of them go up the mountain and they hunt mountain goat. And that's what is needed. That's what our elders utilized to weave some of these old robes. So I told my family members, you get any mountain goats, you have to bring the hide. And so shortly after that, I had Agnes Bellinger, who is Jenny Clenot's daughter, staying with me a couple weeks, and we were on a language project together. And a family member had gotten a mountain goat, and so I was all excited. Here I got my hide, and yay, Jenny's daughter is in my home, and she can walk me through this. I was so excited. Well, I went to the back of the truck, and I didn't even look at the meat. It's always a wonderful, exciting time when the guys would bring fresh meat home. And I didn't even look at it. I did not see the hide. I was very, to say the least, I was very disappointed. I went back in the house and they all knew then that they were going to have to go back and try to get the hide. So the family member got up real early and promised they'd go get it. And if a wolf hadn't gotten it already. Well, fortunately, it was brought down. And so that was my first one. And I was so thankful that Agnes Bellinger was there to kind of just walk me through in how to begin the process. So, and then shortly thereof, Dolores Churchill had a workshop in our community, and I was still working. I had removed the wool from the, I think our next slide, Helen.
Okay. We
Well,
have look.
I think we're, our slides are different and my talk is being, I'm not aligning up with our slides. So anyway, can you go ahead? Yeah, go to the next
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, thank you, Helen. Much appreciated. And anyway, this is a photo of my son, and those mountain goats can weigh anywhere from 250 to 300 pounds. And my grandson also had gotten a mountain goat along with him. So this got me going with the start of removing the wool from the hide. Then if you see how dirty that is, I actually have another one, photos where the hide is just gross. It's got blood and everything, and then you've got to clean that. And so I'm thinking of all through the process, I'm thinking about how did the grandmas do this? Wow. And it was quite a learning experience. And I didn't do this myself. I wouldn't have, and neither could have our grandmas been able to weave without the hunters actually bringing the mountain goats. And so when we look at those old robes, you know that everybody worked hard, and the weaver, it took time. And I think as Gwen and Cara found out, it takes time to even get to weaving. So I had to remove the wool. I removed the wool. I had to get to clean it, remove the long hairs, the guard hairs. It's kind of like the raincoat of the animal. The rain will just slough off, just roll off. And so I had to learn how to clean that hide. Remember, it's taken off the animal now. And so I draped it over some kind of rock, and I'm spraying it. And I thought, oh, I got all the dirt out. And when one of the hunters came to me and said, oh, it looks good, but, and when they started lifting up the guard hairs, oh my goodness, like I said, that water just sloughs right off. It didn't penetrate in, but where the blood was. So I had to get in there, and I learned how to clean it. And in the meantime, I'm looking for cedar. So I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. And so I had a friend that sent me some cedar so I could prepare it to get it into the right texture. You have to cook it, and you have to do a lot of things to it to make it pliable, to spin it. So I had to do that. I went into the venture of spinning the warp. I could not spin the mountain goat on my own. Dolores Churchill helped me, and she took me a few steps back and said, you have to make it into rovings first, and then you can spin from there. And so that was trial and error, and then making a design, and getting to go through. So Helen, can we go to the next slide? And yeah,
this one?
yeah.
Or do you want to
Yeah.
go back to the book?
No, we're going to do that
Oh.
one. Thank you. So this is a new word for me. You want to say that word for me, Helen?
It's the Socratic Method from Socrates. She's telling me how she's teaching, and I'm like, oh, you're using the Socratic Method. We need to say that. So,
but so the picture is of how Dolores taught me how to put them into rovings, and it's after I've cleaned it. And so my questions to my apprentices is, because these are the great granddaughters of Jenny Clinot, I really wanted them to see her in a different way. I wanted them to, I think when we think about our loved ones, you know, we see special things about them, and their great grandma is known as one of the last master weavers. I would consider her the master weaver, because she didn't just weave, she had a purpose. And she dedicated her life. She was known to the other clans in the region as a person they could come to, and she could listen to their clan stories, and she could depict it in a weaving piece. This is one of the most important parts of Chilkoot weaving. And I wanted my apprentices to just kind of learn from her in a different way. And so I did ask a lot of questions, and I hoped it made them think of her in a different way. And in my beginning stages, I actually approached somebody that had Chilkat robes, and the individual brought out a tattered, and I didn't ask to utilize the individual's name, so I'm not going to say it here, but the individual was so generous and gave me a tattered Chilkat robe to study. And I used that. I didn't take it apart. I just looked at it, and that was kind of one of my teachers. So here I say, you know, grandmas need to know clan history. Their weavings had to depict the history. And there was an era when we learned from the robes that are there, in what era did they start making totemic designs into weaving? Because before the Chilkat weaving, there was the raven's tail. And then we can see transitional robes. And this presentation isn't about that. But what I'm saying is, what I wanted my apprentices to know is, why did grandmas weave? Why did they do this time-consuming thing with the support of their families, with the support of their community? It was very important. It was important because this is going to be something that's going to hand down their identity. They did not want their children, their grandchildren, to ever forget who they were. And this is that link that they make to their next generations. So it meant a lot to the women. I believe, me as a person growing up in a traditional home, the men were the ones that did the arts, the painting, and maybe the women helped also, but I don't believe they went and designed. But when they were able to suddenly make designs into weaving, this was their opportunity to contribute to relaying history. That's my thought. So
Can I go back, Marsha, to there's a slide here that shows some of this.
okay, this is and I'm also a language mentor. I am a speaker, and I am a teacher of the Tlingit language. It's something I've done for well over 20 some years. And so being a mentor is not just telling somebody what to do. It's helping them, guiding them, empowering them, especially in our Tlingit society. And hopefully that when they begin to know who they are, they become much richer. They make their communities richer. They make their communities stronger. They make their clans better. And they're not just their community, but their father's people. And how do you play into this protocol that has been going on for centuries? And some of it people say, why do you want to keep on doing this? Well, here's one of the best robes that I think that is out there. And this is the Chilkoot Adi. I just want to give honor to them. Austin Hammond used to bring this up. Austin Hammond was the clan leader of the Chilkoot Adi out on the Chilkoot side of this Chilkat region. And this robe is the deed that they particularly own that area. So this is like a title to land, the deed for the land. So this made a big statement, and it tells the people, and it represents the people, the Chilkoot Adi, the past and the present, and it also is the Chilkoot Adis to the future. So there's more to art, what we call art for Tlingit people. I didn't want to just teach how to weave. I mean, I could have just ran a class and just sat there and taught them how to loom it and ta-da. But I wanted my apprentices to recognize what Jenny Clinot had to do, had to know before she even wove something for another clan. Weaving is about knowing the culture, and here it is. I said it in a different way for your clan. Today, traditionally, it was the opposite clan that created the piece. They were commissioned by the opposite clan to make regalia for but nowadays we're not really practicing that. We're far and in between. So we just do the best we can today in creating things for our clans.
You talked about, Marsha, you talked about looking at the robes, and you want to talk a little bit about what might be seen on the back of the robe?
Yes. We also did a field trip to thank you, Helen. We did a field trip to the Alaska State Museum, and they are wonderful. You just have to make arrangements ahead of time, and they will set some time aside, but somebody has to be there with you, and they'll take you to the back. And so I just wanted to give a plug in for that. If you're a weaver, take the time to go and study these old robes. So here we are looking, and I'm trying to point out some of the things that's happening in the back side of the robe actually tells the weaver how it's woven, or if they had to add warp, if they had to subtract warp to, there's a lot of things going on in weaving. And so we can see where the weaver has, whether her splicing, did she do a dovetail? Did she do a string down, just a binding? Where did she do it? Did she do many of them? And if there's no splicing, my mind just, if she did all this without any splicing, that means she wove all the way across. And she had to deal with all kinds of strands there. So we're looking at where she may have added, and especially to get the V shape, different things happen at the bottom, and you still got to do your design field. So just to get this odd shape. Thank you.
And the other place you said that was a good source of learning.
And this book was done by Cheryl Samuel. Cheryl Samuel was already a weaver, different kind of weaver, but she was working on her dissertation, and she worked extensively with Bill Holmes and down in Seattle area. And she actually went to Russia. She studied the raven's tail robes. And if it wasn't for her, we would not be able to do Raven's tail weaving today. She's the one that took the time, looked at Emmons's book, and she went to Russia, took the pictures, studied those robes, brought it back. Her and Dolores Churchill hung heads, and yeah, this is another resource that I utilize. It's pretty hard to do Chilkoot weaving all by yourself, but once you've done it, this becomes your wonderful resource. And I've helped my apprentices to use the book as a guide too, because I'm not going to be there all the time. And I hope they continue Chilkoot weaving. I know I'll always be with them. We live in the same community, so we'll continue together. Okay.
So I think
There
the
we
next one is
here we go. Can we show the pulling of the wool?
Mhm.
Oh, here I am pulling wool, and this is the hide. I know it looks gross. Fortunately, I'm not showing you my real gross pictures. But here I am just pulling it off. Usually I slide it off, but just wanted to give you a glimpse. But this is the guard hairs, the long hairs, that's guard hairs, and they just come out. And the other picture, you can see how filthy it is. And the hairs aren't very long. They're just, you can see my finger there. It's really hard to spin on the spinner because they're so short. I spun wefts from Mountain Goat. So you can move.
You want to go back to this? No. That's just a
I
lot
think
of
I
wool.
said all that. Anyway, here I am in my home, and I had a visitor. She wanted to learn how to weave a basket. And here I am. I was doing this while I'm teaching her. And then I had another visitor come in. And so I taught her how to make roving. So I got a nice, good pile. So I know I don't look happy there, but I was. So anyway, so here's another one. We work with Fish and Game. This box of wool, this is part of this I gave to Gwen and Cara, and that's what they learned on. They learned how to clean it. They learned how to they had to remove the debris, move everything. You can't leave any leaves because it'll discolor the wool. Washing is, we have to use special things, and if there's any bloody parts, that has to be taken out, or else it'll discolor the wool and it'll stay. I've done that mistake. Laying it out to dry, I use my window screens to dry. I turn often, and it just all matted, flattened. It doesn't look like much. But as you get going, I like to do mine in the coldest month because the air is drier. Okay.
Oh, and this is you.
And here I am teaching them how to thigh spin, the beginning parts. And this is mountain goat wool. And the thing that I found with mountain goat wool, it is different. It's not like sheep. Sheep is curly, so it has more spring. It'll always have that unless you set it. And then the mountain goat, once you spin it, because of the fibers are so different, it's got that. It doesn't have that stretchiness to it. Okay. This is one of the things I think when my piece began, this isn't my piece, this is Gwenny's. moving my fingers in the wool, the warp and the wefts, just like the grandmas have done for centuries. When that hit me, it was quite humbling. And it is an honor to have been able to learn. And the wonderful apprentices, the wonderful mentors I had Irene Jimmy, who taught me how to make the circle. And she's no longer alive, but she was one of the students that Jenny Clinot had done that workshop many years ago. Okay.
I think we're ready for Gwen. Thank you, Marsha.
All right. Well, thank you, Marsha. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. And the picture here, we chose to put up just because I think it was just so beautiful. And we had Marsha, Cara, and I had gone up to Clockwan, and we dyed a bunch of the wefts. And as you can see, we did yellow and a blue-green. And I came home and hung them up outside, and I just thought it was really beautiful seeing the sunlight and also seeing, even though these particular ones were not mountain goat, it still reminded me of the connection to the land here, you know, seeing it out in the woods and the sun shining on it. And yeah, it was just really beautiful. Could we go to the next slide? The value of apprenticeship. So some of my background was I got a studio art degree in college and went on to teach art at a school for a while. And then I homeschool my boys now. And one thing that I really loved about teaching art or being in a classroom setting with art was there's just this big group of people and you're bouncing ideas off of each other. And I think that's really inspiring. And when the apprenticeship came up, you know, I'd always been in a classroom setting, you know, learning with a teacher with a bunch of people and great, I loved it. But the apprenticeship I have found has caused me to look a little bit deeper in myself. And one thing Marsha was talking about was, you know, her questions. She likes to ask questions, and the questions have really made me think a lot this year. And she doesn't always expect an answer, you know, it's more think on these things, you know, and I've just found that to be really valuable in my life. There's been a lot of moments thinking back, you know, weaving is just such an important part of my family. When I was little, I remember great grandma, she passed away when I was 6 years old. And I remember going and visiting her up in Clockwan, or her coming to our home and visiting us, and or being at Grandma Edna's home. And, you know, that's just family, being family. And I remember so much of her hands and how they like to move and work. And, you know, they were weavers' hands. And so sitting in front of a loom myself now and having the warps and all these different components, it's just been really quite, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just been a very special time. It brings back a lot of memories, even though I wasn't the one weaving. And, you know, I just feel closer to family. Family, and, you know, I don't think you can do this sort of art or craftsmanship without thinking of our ancestors and really sensing them there with you too, because you're doing what they've passed down. And so that's been very special. And I think some other things about the value of apprenticing has been the personal learning. You know, like Marsha wasn't someone that we just met. We've known her a very long time, probably my whole life. You know, we were on a camping trip together when I was a kid, you know, and used to go and up to Clockwan and spend the night with Priscilla, and we'd play, you know, and so that relationship has been there, but it's grown a lot in this year. And her knowing who my sister and I already were, and you know, just as, you know, our personalities and kind of how we move around and do our things. So tailoring teaching to our learning styles too, I think is something that's valuable in apprenticeship, because you can't really always do that in a large classroom setting. Some of my favorite moments has been, you know, sitting around our kitchen table. Sometimes we're talking or looking at the books. A lot of times we're weaving, or I'm watching her demonstrate. And other times we've shared a lot of meals together. And I think that, you know, there's something about sitting down with other people around a table and inviting them into your lives. It's like a mutual invitation, and eating together. And I think the apprenticeship takes it beyond just learning an art form too, and bringing in community. And so that's one thing that I'll always take away from this apprenticeship. I think one of my most precious memories so far has been, this was very early on in the apprenticeship, and you can see in the pictures here, my two boys, Jaden and Eli, they have yogurt containers in their hands. And Marsha had come in that day and showed the boys how to twine around the yogurt cups, and they made little baskets, and they got to design their own little designs. And I was still very, very new, well, I still am, but exceptionally new to learning weaving. And I remember sitting there weaving, and my boys were across from me, and Marsha had a book that had a lot of histories and oratory type speeches, and great grandma's prayer for her class back at the Raven House. Marty read that over us, first in Tlingit and then in English. And it was just one of those moments where you kind of feel like, almost like a rock hitting the water, you know, and those ripples just going through the times, the ages, you know, like great grandma's words still being spoken, and you know, kind of the power of and words and actions, and I think the intentions of heart. And so I'll never forget that. And that was really impactful for my boys too, because it wasn't just mom learning weaving with Marsha, they were invited in as well. And I think that is something that was something that they'll never forget as well. Some other things, the other day I made the comment that weaving has really changed how I look at life, just in simple ways sometimes, you know. A lot of times I'm always kind of thinking about the interconnectedness, you know, like weaving, there's always movement with your fingers, and but not too much movement, because I can do too much. And so Marsha will, you know, gently remind me, oh, you're moving your hands too much, or something like that, and bringing it back to the balance. And I remember in July, we had culture camp out at the Chilkoot Culture Camp, and Karen Togg, the other apprentice, and we were out there helping to clean up, and we had moved the rocks for the fire circle. And so, you know, the two of us, we moved these rocks into this big circle. And when we finished the rock, we put the last rock down. I looked at Karen and said, Karen, we closed up our circle. And, you know, she just kind of laughed. And, You know, it was just kind of a fun moment of, you know, we've been walking the same path in the way of we're both, well, I'm a totally new learner to beginner weaver. Karen is not, but still we're apprenticing and learning more. And so that was just a fun little thing.
Do you want to go into the curriculum?
Sure.
Okay.
So the curriculum, a lot of what we've been doing is, as I'm a beginner weaver, and my sister has woven previously, she did a Raven's Tail, which is different from Chilkat. A lot of times she's always kind of like going back and having to rethink it because there's just different little things here and there. And she was moving up to Haynes at the time. She was in Juneau. And so Marsha had Cara, you know, like told her to keep working on her stuff. And she also was in Juneau doing trading and gathering materials like the cedar bark, the yellow cedar. And so she was doing that. And while she was doing that, I was in Haynes really for the first times learning how to weave. It wasn't this piece that's pictured. You'll see it in another picture, but so beginning weaving for me, we did a museum visit that Marsha spoke a bit on. We were dyeing the weft. We thigh spun with and without cedar bark because there's two different kinds of warp. You have your Chilkoot warp with your cedar bark and wool, or you have no cedar bark, and that's for the Raven's Tail. And one of the things about thigh spinning that was really special to Cara and I especially was memories. You know, Dad would always talk about great-grandma and how he and his siblings get that mountain goat wool up and bring it down for her. Other people would often bring in the hides. I know Uncle Donnie would do that at times when he was younger. But some of my earliest memories are even of my grandma Edna, you know, preparing that roving and working that cedar bark and the wool. And so that was a special thing to be doing now in our life. The first project was a small rectangle, learning how to warp a loom, twining, braiding, and wrapping. And then the second project, Cara and myself, we did the Chilkoot circle. We continued to learn more about braiding. And I think it was in this project where I really started to learn the importance of braiding and how it creates those beautiful circles and the fluid lines. I never made those connections before. And also we learned about joining different color sections. Project 3, which is what we're working on now, is the Chilkoot face and how to do a border, splicing, and then also like, well, what are you going to do with this when you're done, you know? So we've had those conversations as well. And I'm thinking I'm gonna turn mine into a bag and so learning how to make it. But Marsha was telling us while we were working on this project that was pictured that a great grandma used to say that once you start a circle, you always need to finish it that day. You know, when you sit down and start it, you need to finish it. And we ended up doing 2 days because, you know, as beginners, we ended up taking a really long time doing that first half of the circle. And it just, you know, weaving takes time. And the second half, I think it actually took longer than the top half. But, you know, in those moments, I think a lot of time for me, a lot of times I want to always measure like, okay, how long can I do this or that? But weaving really kind of teaches you to like take time, quit looking at the clock all the time. And why are you doing this? Why is it important? And I think also if you weave or bead or do anything like that, a lot of that's just an overflow of your heart. You have to really love doing what you're doing because it is such a time commitment. And I've enjoyed being in front of my loom and just weaving away, and then all of a sudden looking over and being like, wow, I've woven for hours and it didn't even feel like. I guess the next slide is about the museum visit. And this was a lot of fun. Going to Juneau and going to the museum, it actually exceeded my expectations. I really wasn't sure what to expect. I thought we would really just kind of look at the robes and be interesting, but Marsha really taught us to kind of dig deeper. You know, I think that's kind of a key phrase with Marsha, is always digging deeper. And I feel like if I went today, I'd be seeing different things than when I was there back in June. And during that time period, we'd been learning braiding. And so the braids really stood out to me. But she was showing us how to look at the robes and take time to question and wonder what is being said. And studying the back of the robe, what did the grandmas do to create this? And we also measured different areas and we would take pictures. And one of the really important things that's really hit home is take the time to learn our history, to learn our stories and our culture, because it's such a big part. It's not, weaving's an aspect, but it's so much more than that. It goes deeper. And studying a robe in a museum, some of the things, practical aspects she was teaching us was, who do you contact if you want to go to a museum and study a robe? Or what do you bring with you? You know, bringing a pad of paper and pencil and, you know, a measuring stick, all of those sort of things were pretty important, and what you might expect when you go. So here, you can actually see, I almost feel like we should have labeled it more. We labeled it mountain goat wool versus merino sheep commercial wool. And the reason we labeled that is because this piece that you're seeing, this was one of Marsha's pieces. And it's where I had my piece next to this one. And I was learning, and she would work on her piece and show me kind of what to do, and then I'd go back. But I was really struggling at first, because in my mind, you know, when I taught like paper weaving, you know, in elementary grade school for the, you know, those Thanksgiving units or something, it was like the in and out, I believe Helen had told me that was plating. And with Chilkoot weaving, you're learning twining in this area. And so when Marsha first started weaving and I was watching, I was like, what in the world is she doing, you know? And so it really took me quite a while to really kind of get it down, and I'm still not there, but you know, every time we move forward, you just get better, you know, it becomes more natural. So here, this is really more showing kind of like where she was able to show me a practical way to really learn the braiding. She broke it down into 3 colors so I could see it and then move forward. And it was done on mountain goat wool, which just felt really special. And so dyeing with commercial dyes. Here, this was the day I was telling you about up in Clockwan. And Marsha had a one skein of the mountain goat wool, and then we had a bunch of the merino wool, and it was with commercial dye. And we want to see what would happen when we would dye the 2 different things here. And so you can see that the mountain goat was a lot lighter than the merino wool. And recently, someone else did merino wool and goat wool, and it actually had the opposite effect. And I asked Marsha, why would that be? Because ours was light in the mountain goat, and here theirs is so bright and vibrant. And her response to me was, well, they weren't using commercial dyes, they used the natural dyes. And so it's been really interesting to see how everything responds. It just responds differently and takes that dye differently. The next slide here is just some of the different projects. The middle one, that is the first one that I was learning, and you can see the squares. Had a lot of fun doing those squares. And then off to the side, one thing that Marsha talks about is don't waste your materials. And so this was some of the extra warp, and I made some wrapped earrings and a necklace. And then the left picture there, that is of the Chilkoot face that I'm just now beginning. And so you can kind of see in the background my loom and the setup there. And that is in there. So Gunish Chish.
I think we have a little time for questions if anyone in the audience or has a question for us. And this, I do want to say that each of our mentor and apprentice pairs have different journeys, but every single one of them did a museum visit. They all took their apprentices to a museum, different museums, but to a museum, and helped them see things at the museum that would inspire them or teach them more from the objects. And as a former museum director, that was near and dear to my heart, that the museums were useful.
Yeah, I guess I have a question. My name's Lucy Williams, so thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. You started out, Helen, by saying that you really were trying to find out what the need of the community was, I believe, and that this project came out of that. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that. Did you sort of go into it with a different expectation that, oh, okay, maybe our program will do this, this, and this, but then when you asked and got the sort of really listened, you shaped it this way. Can you speak to that at all, or not?
Yes, because we've been doing some other projects as well, and we've tried using surveys, and that it works to some extent, but I found that our community isn't really happy about doing surveys. They're not really interested in filling out pieces of paper. So that's usually a little bit, but a lot more comes from just meeting with people, either one-on-one, going out, inviting people out for lunch, inviting people to be part of a special group, just different ways of talking. And to some extent, also finding one or two people who may be able to give me a good picture of what the group as a whole wants. So the way this project really got formalized was the head of the tribal council sat down with me and said, this looks like something that would work for us. And then we took it back to the cultural committee, and they were excited about it and agreed. So Rob Martin, who's one of the apprentices, is actually on our cultural committee too. He was very excited, and he was very worried he'd have to quit all his stuff to be able to do this. And we said, no, you can stay. We want you on the cultural committee as well. But it was, it's not a formal, and I've been reading a lot about the difference in methodologies between working with indigenous populations and working versus sort of the American populations, the kind of general ideas where you do these surveys and you have a lot of paper and writing. And with the indigenous populations, it's less about statistics and paper, and it's more about community and interrelationships. And that's where this really works well, the apprentice mentor model, because in our community, it's about relationships. I think, Gwen and Marsha talked about how they've known each other a long time. And I've seen that with each of the apprenticeships it's about those relationships. So this is really providing a tighter community, providing relationships, providing the networking, and all of those are really inherent parts of how our community works. So it makes a lot more sense to people. And when I'm gathering the data, a lot of what I do now is I'm anecdotal. I mean, I think in our contracts, we say that we have to have a written report from everybody in the middle of this thing. Well, everybody's come in and talked to me or called me. I've had lots of, but I don't get a lot of written material out of people. So I've revised sort of that thought in terms of what I'm getting out of people and how I'm assimilating information. Does that answer it?
And then just to follow up on that, it also sounds as though it was sort of driven by the apprentices and their wishes and needs first, would you say, rather than coming up with a list of mentors who were all set to give X and then try to find.
Came from the California model. And that's exactly the California model. The apprentices and the mentors come in as a group together and do their application. That's what I have them doing. But because our community is so small and because we don't have very many masters, I mean, I think we have one master carver and you know, a few master weavers, but we really don't have very many masters. What we stated is that we want the apprentices to be from our community because we want to build mastery in our community, but the masters, the mentors, can be from anywhere. I think the only proviso is they couldn't be from out of country because it's a federal grant and we couldn't pay them if they're from Canada. But mostly they could be anywhere. I mean, the idea was that if they needed to go to Washington, D.C., the $6,000 would hopefully help fund them, you know, to go there if that's where the master was. It doesn't go very far, but it's something.
Going to have the students then go to either the community here in Southeast, even if it was beyond your community, or even further. Okay. Right. Wow.
Right.
Fantastic.
So Lily Hope is in Juneau and Karen Taug is in Haines, and Karen has gone down to Lily on a number of occasions. And Lily's planning on coming up here, but I don't think she has yet. And then they're doing a lot over Zoom. So part of our question in the application is, well, how are you going to make this work? How are you going to be communicating and how are you going to be? So even though we say 520 hours, we're kind of loose on it in terms of, you know, if you're doing it over Zoom with each other versus in person. We want some in-person time, but we also realize that what we're asking is maybe impossible if your mentor is quite a ways away. Yeah. And the other thing that's happened is some of our people who did not apply for apprenticeships have found apprenticeships. Like one of our tribal president, he was like, I don't think I can apply for this because I'm the tribal council president and it would be weird, you know, viewed as unethical. So, but he's an artist, he's a carver, and he wanted to get more information. So he found a master carver who would hire him as an apprentice, but it kind of inspired him to do that.
How will you sustain the program? I think you said it was a 3-year grant, and is that what you're looking at right now?
Right now we're looking at 3 years, so we figured we'd get 6 apprentices, but we're also looking at continued funding through other grant agencies. So I'm looking at the Rasmussen, I'm looking at these, the potential of NACF being a funder. There's a couple other agencies that do fund things like this or would be interested in, some private foundations as well. So that's, yeah. It's part of what I do is try to find more, try to figure out how to keep it running. We're also looking at some revenue generation through workshops. We've just started doing a series of workshops and some revenue generation through that, because what we want to do is encourage these apprentices to continue working with us. And we also want to raise enough money to be able to start purchasing from them and supporting them. We're trying to get them to go into business, basically. And so this year, as part of the same grant project, we're doing business basics. And I've been talking to Spruce Root. They're doing some art classes, business basics, and they have then some startup grants for new businesses. They're not very high. It's like $1,200, but it's still something for the new artists.
And then how about supporting the mentors as well? Is that something you see expanding?
Definitely. So the mentors get $10,000 from us, and we're trying to make sure that everybody gets good publicity. So part of our promotion is really publicizing them. And then one of the other things that as the CIA grows, our cultural department is having our own gift shop. We have a building on the wharf where all the tourists come into town on the fast ferry, and having a gift shop in there so that our people who have been creating art through and learning through these programs and the mentors and the apprentices have the opportunity to have material for sale there. So we're trying to give them some outlets. I'm also looking at some online outlets that might work well for people. So I've been doing some experimenting with that. So I guess what we're trying to do is make the program viable long-term and also make the, and I think part of that is this is a successful prototype. People seem to be really learning and growing in it. And I think that looks good with them when we go for some more money from somebody else. And then at this point, the other thing is the longevity of their journey as an artist, making it, my goal is to make it so that these people can survive as artists in our community. And how do we make that happen? So, and Gwen, you've already got a couple of commissions, right? A couple little ones. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, Cara and I have both been commissioned. And so it's kind of a pretty neat thing to have happened, you know.
Do you have any relationship with the Clockwan Cultural Center Museum as well, or imagine developing a relationship with that with this program, or no?
We've just, as I said, we just begun it, and we're just kind of 6 months into our first apprentices. So we haven't really got any product just for them. But Marsha lives in Clockwan, and we have been talking with them, and we're talking with them about collaborating on our language apprenticeships and program. So there is dialogue. We haven't done a lot yet, just because we didn't know how successful it would be and how it would go. I'm very happy. I mean, I'm looking at all the stuff that Gwen's done, and I know that she started from zero. Some of our other apprentices didn't, but she's created things already in just a few months, which is part of what we wanted. Marsha, do you want to talk about Clockwan at all? Or?
I think the Heritage Center is always open. I'm sure that if any of the apprentices that have learned in this valley or even through this program, if they had placed anything, they wanted to place anything, that's what they want is, you know, from the locals. And I really can't speak for, but I have put some items in there, and I actually made wrapped earrings, and those sold. And I know that they're open. They're always looking. So I think it's just a matter of time. That is a good question. And do we work with them? I have had weaving retreat. I had a friend that had a huge house, and we all gathered in this beautiful home, and we hung out together, and we actually worked with the center, and some of those days we gathered at the center, and we worked out of their training or they have a large room where you can hold classes, workshops, and they opened that up to us. And so the weaving group had got to go in, and they offered the viewing of they opened the center up to us, and that was, yes, they do work, and they're always willing. So they have been to, you know.
Thank you.
Helen, Gwen, and Marsha, thank you all so much for your time and all that you shared with us. It was so great to have you here in Wrangell today.
Hagunaskish hatuik etsu in yehabuti yaidat katsuya jishkat kasneidat yin kauntuanigi yike.
Sheesh.
Oh, geez.
We wish we could have been there in person.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Goodness, geez.